It's very nice to be second to Ida, because she has already covered some of the points which I was thinking about putting into my presentation, but which I decided not to. But I will delve deeper into some of the aspects during my talk. We're very happy about being allowed to come here and present readjusted responses by use of artificial intelligence in medical calls, which is an NRC-funded project. We started in 2020, and now we're halfway, and we're going to continue till 2024. I've been working within primary healthcare for my whole career, the last 10 years, mostly on decision support tools and telemedical assistance, which is why I've become very interested in how we do our decisions and how artificial intelligence can help us improve our decisions, just as Ira has been talking about. Before I present the project, I just need to take you into the context where we're working. Urgent primary healthcare, known in Norway as legevakt. You access legevakt most places in Norway by calling 116 to 117, apart from some places like Oslo and Bergen where you can still come directly and say, I have a problem. But most places you have to call. We have 96 local emergency medical call centers in Norway. They receive approximately 3 million calls every year, and we know that approximately 17% of the population is in contact with these services every year. Now, the people who operate the 116, 117 are nurses, qualified nurses with clinical training, and their main job is to do what we call triage. That is, when people call, they are going to judge how severe is this problem, how urgent is it, and what kind of medical help is needed. And there is a huge range of these problems, from the very, very severe, when you need an ambulance, you need to come to the hospital as soon as possible for life-saving treatment. But most of the contacts they get are regarding things which are not very urgent, and maybe all the caller need is advice on how to handle this themselves. Being an operator is quite challenging because you work, your main task is actually to talk to the persons who are calling, but at the same time, there are legal requirements about what you have to document and which systems you have to use. And you also use decision support systems to help you make the right decision, because as Ira just said, what one person have in terms of knowledge and experience is limited, and we use decision support system to boost the confidence in the medical decisions. It's quite challenging to keep the focus on the caller at the same time as you operate all these different systems. And before I continue, I have to say something about decision support tools. That is something which has been increasingly used in medical, in the medical context for the past 20 to 30 years. It's all about how to make better decisions. The problem about the decision support tools that we have today is that most of them are based on expert opinion. That is, we've got together people who know a lot about specific things, and they say, I think this is important. But as Ira just said, most of the experts have limited experience, even though they're experts. And also the ability for people to see patterns across different specialities is also limited. What happened when you use decision support trees? Most of the decision support tools are built as decision trees. You go to a branch because you think that the problem is there, and you follow the questions and you follow the criteria on that branch. But mostly life is complex. Medical issues people seek help for are often complex, and they might not fit into one of what is happening in one of the branches. And that is something we want to do in Reaimed. We want to help the operators to keep their focus on the communication with the caller instead of following a specific branch. We want to give them the opportunity to have real-time documentation instead of writing up their notes afterwards, because by having real-time documentation, we can help them to prioritize which questions should be asked next. We want to help them to discover the critical cases, and we were also considering to help them to predict and give a triage level. Now, our approach is that we have made an interactive user interface that the operator uses to document the symptoms that caller present. That allows the artificial intelligence to work and nudge the operator to ask questions that could be relevant. And it also alerts the operator to alarming symptoms. In this project, we have a big group of people with different backgrounds. We are health personnel. We are people with background in development and artificial intelligence and user design. And a huge part of this project has been to be able to talk together to make the non-medical people understand enough of the medical context and to make us with medical background understand enough of the technology that we can actually build something which is useful. One of the things we have done, which is really the core of this project, is that we have built a database with more than 1,200 keywords, which describe most of the symptoms that people can have. These keywords cannot describe absolutely all situations, but they can describe most of the situation, because it's like it is actually limited how many symptoms you can have from a body. We've also built a safety net where we've used the currently used decision tree in Norway and the decision to support system to and it kind of lies behind. Whenever you document something, it checks whether you report some of the symptoms that could go into a critical case. And if you report symptoms that could go into a critical case, then the interface will alert you. We are currently developing the user interface. This is the prototype as it looks at the moment, and we're going to scientifically check it in a study in the spring. It has 3 components. It has the predictions of what you should ask next. It has the possibility of searching yourself for what you want to document if that is not in the prediction list. And then you get an organized documentation, which is quite nice actually when you're working, because not only you get a quick documentation, but you get also help to organize what it is about. And here is an example of how the system nudges you. This clinical case was a young man who had got something, a big heavy object directly on his head. And he got an increasingly headache. And he was worried that he had a serious incident and a serious injury. And by going through the predicted questions, we saw that there was a lot of things he didn't have that could, that kind of contradicted that this was the critical case. And here is an example: a headache in combination with being confused after an accident to the head could possibly be a sign of a serious bleeding, which needs immediate treatment at hospital. Luckily, this guy was not confused. He was very aware of what was happening around him, and we could safely just give him an advice and ask him to call back if things changed. Now we are running into a lot of challenges when it comes to this, and some of them are kind of more ethical and moral and practical than they are technical. So, for example, when we are giving suggestions via AI, should we actually nudge or should we direct people in a specific direction? And the consequences for that is that we know that some people have a tendency to leave the responsibility for the final decision to a tool if they're allowed to, whereas others will use the system to boost their own and improve their own decisions. And by the way we are building our system, we can enforce one or the other approach. And thereby, we're also kind of tweaking how responsible people are for the final decision. Because if we say, and if the health leaders say that you should follow the algorithm, then it's really the algorithm that is responsible for the decisions. Or we can use it like we want to use it in our project, which is that we want to help the people make better decisions, but we have to make sure that there is nothing in the user interface or in the way that the algorithms work that kind of take over the responsibility for people. The other big problem here is within primary healthcare, we have primary healthcare is the part of medicine with the most uncertainty, because we cover everything. We cover diseases at a very early stage when you don't really know whether they will dissolve, will be solved spontaneously without us doing anything, or whether they will become something serious. And in this field, it's quite difficult to tell the machine what is correct, because what is really the golden standard and what we decide to be the gold standard has severe consequences for the healthcare services and the sustainability of the services. Just to give you an example of that, we have a research project here at the center where I'm working, where we follow 7 different emergency call centers. And we've been following all the activity for several years. What happened in 2017 and 2018 was that 2 of them decided to move or to change which kind of decision support tool they were using. And suddenly, by using this new decision support tool, we saw that the way that we're triaging the patients changed substantially. Suddenly, there were a lot more critical cases, there were a lot more urgent cases, and the cases that were considered to be not so severe were becoming nearly minority. That has huge impact on how we use the resources in the healthcare system. Because also there is no reason to believe that the population of these municipalities which are covered by these call centers changed so dramatically in how they became ill during the years after they changed to a different decision support tool. The problematic thing for when you want to use decision support tools as a kind of expert, this is what is correct, is that actually we do not know which of the decision support tools are correct, because there hasn't been done any work yet to validate these systems. And that is something we hope to be able to do in the future with Reaimed, that we are collecting standardized data and will later be able to mine into this data to improve current decision support.